Dear listeners, please let us know what you think about our two new channels, and if you have not subscribed to them yet, please help us with a subscription. The links are in the description box. Now for today's story. I was aboard the cruise ship Carnival Splendor, and shortly I'll be meeting with the captain on the bridge of his ship. I explained to the events coordinator what I wanted, and she relayed the message to the captain, who invited me up to the bridge. Captain, I would like to ask my girlfriend Tracy Adams to marry me on Valentine's Day. What would be the proper procedure on how to accomplish this? I asked. That is a good question, Mr. Kent. I will invite both of you to dine at my table on Valentine's Day, and you can ask her then. I'll have my events coordinator attend to this situation, he replied. We talked some more on the plan, while he showed me around the bridge. Mr. Kent, everybody who is aboard this ship has a story. Would you like to tell me yours? Captain, first, my name is David, and second, my story would be a long one and might bore you. That is okay, Mr. Kent. Sorry, David. I have plenty of time and lots of ocean in front of us, with no place for us to hide. So, yes, I would like to hear your story. So I proceeded to tell him my story. My name is Clark David Kent III, with the last name of Kent. Who in the hell would name your son Clark, let alone the third? Not hard to figure that one out. You my folks with help from my grandfolks. Yes, I got plenty of teasing in school about my name. Where are your glasses? Do you have your Superman suit under your clothes? Can I see your suit? Can you really fly? Can you see through walls? And a whole host of other stupid questions. I think it would be appropriate that I give you some background on me first. During my teen years, I would help my best friend, Steve. His dad, Roger, owned a small excavating company. He did a lot of private jobs, and Steve and I would help him. He taught both of us how to operate heavy equipment. I took to operating a hydraulic crane, like a duck does to water. I'm good at operating most road equipment, but I love the crane the best. After I graduated from River City High School, I went to the union's Operating Engineers Training School. I spent a year there learning all that I could about operating equipment. I had my application into many different construction firms. I received a lot of job offers, but I always wanted to work for Three Brothers. Their headquarters is just outside of River City, in Riverview Township. They made me an offer which I took. I still work for Roger on the side when he needs some extra help. I also help other guys on the weekend. I guess now is a good time to give you some additional background on me. I am 5 feet, 9 inches tall, weight 180 pounds. I work construction, so I am pretty well put together. I have brown hair and eyes. I go by the name of David. I met Jan at our annual summer company picnic. Jan and I had gone to school together. She was a year ahead of me. She dated a guy through their junior and senior years in high school. He joined the army after high school graduation and was killed in Iraq, but not before he got her pregnant. She gave birth to twin girls, June and July. She came to the picnic with a guy that I didn't know. He left her alone and wandered around, flirting with most of the women and drinking plenty of beer. I saw her standing alone, so I approached her. Hi, my name is David, I said. Hi, David, I remember you. My name is Jan, short for January, she replied. It seems like your date has left you alone, I smiled at her. He is such an a-hole. I don't know why I let him talk me into coming to this picnic with him, she said sadly. Well, the food is ready. If you like, I could join you till the a-hole shows up. I would like that, but where is your date? I came stag to the picnic. I just broke up with my girlfriend, and I am between relationships right now. Oh, sorry to hear that, but seeing how my a-hole date is busy elsewhere, I would be glad to have you join me for lunch. We chatted while we ate our lunch. As we finished, her a-hole of a date showed up 3 sheets to the wind. He made some snide remarks about me stealing his date and then told her it was time to go. She smiled at me, thanks for the company. Then she handed me a piece of paper, which I quickly put in my pocket. I didn't say much, not wanting to piss off her already pissed off date. I told a few of my buddies about the girl I met at the picnic. I wanted to call her the next day, but they told there was a 3-day rule. What is a 3-day rule? I asked. That you don't call the girl for 3 days after your first date, they replied. I told them, we didn't have a date. We just ate lunch together at the picnic. You still must wait 3 days, they responded. So I waited the 3 days as protocol required. But who dreamed up the 3-day rule? I wondered to myself. As soon as the 3 days were up, I gave her a call. We set up a time and day for our first official date. I won't bore you with our dating life. In 3 months we were exclusive, and in 3 months after that, I asked her to marry me. Just a little after a year from our first date, we were married in September. In between, I met her side of the family, and she met my side. I met and bonded with her 2 daughters. Jan is 5 feet, 6 inches tall. I guess she is around 125 pounds. She never told me what she weighs, girl's secret. Her body is well proportioned, and the curves are all in the right places. She has blonde hair and brown eyes. Her 2 daughters are blonde hair, blue-eye beauties. They must have gotten their eye color from their dad. 6 months after wedding, in April, our son was born. Yeah, he was a bun in the oven. When we got married, my wife Jan wanted to name our son Clark David Kent IV. I said, no way was that going to happen in my lifetime. We compromised, and he was named David Clark Kent. We live in River City. The company had scheduled a quarterly safety meeting at the main office for those of us working in the area. Usually I'm up and gone by 7 a.m. This Monday, the scheduled safety meeting was at 8 a.m. So I left the house 30 minutes later than normal at 7:30 a.m. I got into my truck and left the garage. When I pulled out, I noticed the neighbors had their trash out. Damn, I almost forgot to put our trash out. I stopped my truck and went back into the garage. I grabbed the 2 trash containers and took them out to the road. I wondered if the kitchen trash can is full, I said to myself. I forgot to look this morning. I walked back into the house and stopped by the laundry room doorway. I could hear my wife on the phone talking with someone. Hi honey, can you talk now? There seemed to be a pause as she waited for a reply. Well, just listen. This weekend the girls are going to their cousin's house for a sleepover. They leave Friday night and will come home sometime Sunday afternoon. Davy is going on a Boy Scout camping trip for the weekend, leaving Friday and coming home on Sunday. David will be goose hunting both Saturday and Sunday. That gives us both mornings to screw ourselves silly. I will open the garage door and text you that it is safe to enter the garage. After you enter the garage, make sure you close the garage door. I don't want the nosy neighbors to know that you are here. Another pause as she listened to his reply. Oh no, I hear my girls fighting. I have to go. I will see you this weekend. I love you, babe, bye. I quickly ducked back around the corner, hoping that she won't come this way. I watched as she hustled through the kitchen and dining room toward the bedrooms. I could hear the 2 girls yelling at each other. I opened the entrance door to the garage, walking to my truck. I got in and closed the garage door. I drove to the safety meeting in a daze. My mind was running 1,000 miles an hour after what I just heard. I'm not sure just how I made it through the day. I don't remember a thing that was said at the safety meeting. Thank God that I didn't hurt anybody during the workday. I was in a fog all day long. I stopped at the Riverview bar on the way home. I ordered a beer and began to think on what type of action I should take. I figured that I needed to do some more research and get some evidence. I needed to know what the divorce laws were in my state. I'll need to get a recording device and some film for my camera. I was daydreaming about our past and how this could have happened. What did I do that caused her to look to other men? I could not think of a damn thing. I was always there for her. It felt like the 12 years we have been married are being flushed down the drain. I thought back on our honeymoon. We went to Sanibel Island in Florida, just east of Fort Myers. I could remember our first night there, and just how we made love as husband and wife. I was sitting in a chair in the bedroom looking at some of the wedding pictures when Jan came out of the bathroom. She was wearing a skimpy white teddy, which did not do a good job of hiding her attributes. She sat down on my lap and starts to kiss me. Our tongues were doing lap dances in each other's mouth. She broke the kiss and pulled off my t-shirt. She began to rub her hand over the top half of my body. You are very chiseled, she murmured as she resumed kissing me. I held her tight and kissed her back softly, and then with some more passion. We made love. All this leads me up to that fateful phone call that I overheard. How to solve this problem at hand, and just what the hell am I going to do about my unfaithful wife? After I finished my beer, I finalized my plan, and a trip to Radio Shack was on my agenda. I talked with a sales clerk. He seemed to understand what I wanted. He set me up with a good voice-activated recorder, with 2 mics and extra flash drives. I also got a 36-picture roll of 800-speed 35mm film for my Canon EOS Rebel camera. This film is very good in low-light situations. I priced nanny cams, but really not sure where to place them to get the best pictures. So I passed on buying the nanny cam. I knew where they were going to be and what time they planned on being together. The camera and recorder should be enough to get the evidence that I wanted. On Thursday, when I got home from work, I installed the recording device and microphones. I did a couple test runs to make sure that it worked properly. I checked my camera over and installed the film. I set the camera settings for low light picture taking. I was ready for Saturday. Thursday night when Jan got home, we had dinner together as a family. That night Jan was getting frisky in bed. I played tired and just slept. She complained a bit, but then slept. I knew I was never going near that woman ever again. The next day I went to work, and when I got home, I loaded up my truck with my hunting gear, guns, ammo, and decoys. I always go to bed early on the night before going hunting, and she knew better than to disturb me. The kids left Friday night to their various functions, and I was in bed by 9 p.m. I felt Jan come to bed a little later. It was hard for me to get to sleep, knowing what she has planned for tomorrow. As usual, I beat the alarm clock, and I shut it off before the alarm sounded. I opened my nightstand drawer and turned on the recorder. I got up and went into the laundry room to change into my hunting clothes. The coffee was done, and I filled my thermos. I unlocked the backyard sliding window and grabbed my lunch out of the fridge. I loaded everything into the truck and left the house at 5:30 a.m. I stopped at Tim Hortons and got some donuts to eat while I drank my coffee. I hope these donuts don't give me heartburn. I know I'll have a broken heart when I see what she will be doing. Some would say, why don't I just go in there and stop her? But who would stop her the next time when I wasn't around? It doesn't sound like she plans to stop willingly. I suppose that I could have dropped some hints, but leave it. I need to know just what was going on. I drove back to my house to wait. I waited down by the river, where I had a good view of my driveway and garage. I pulled out my binocular and got them focused in on my garage. Now it was a waiting game. At 6:30 a.m., the garage door opened. 10 minutes later, a Ford Escape drove by me and turned on my street and right up my driveway into my garage. I watched him walk through the garage up to the entryway door. He pushed the button to close the garage and walked into my house. I knew I couldn't beat the crap out of him because my wife invited him into my house and he had a right to be there, even if he is screwing my wife. There is no way that I am going to spend any time in jail over him screwing my traitorous wife. I left my truck and walked the short distance to my house. I opened the gate and walked toward my bedroom window. It was still dark out, but the moon was giving off some light. I hope there is enough light for my film to capture them in the act. I had about half hour before sunrise. It was a clear and cool morning as I focused my camera around the yard. Then I got a break. She turned on her reading light by the bed. I watched them have sex. Those pictures finished up my roll of film, and I'm done here. I slipped back out of the slider and walked back to my truck. I could feel the coffee and donuts rumbling around in my stomach. When I got back to my truck, everything in my stomach came up, some of it through my nose. Man, what an awful taste that leaves in your mouth. I sat in my truck kind of numb from what I just witnessed. I was killing time until my buddy opened up his Photoshop. Stop by around 9 a.m. and I will develop the film for you, he told me. All in all, the pictures turned out very good. He made me 3 copies, one for me, one for my attorney, and one for my soon-to-be ex-wife. If you need any of the negatives blown up into larger size copies, just let me know. It won't be a problem for me to do that, he said. I had nothing else to do, so I joined my hunting buddies. I was a little late, but better late than not at all. I did kill some geese. It felt good. It was like I was aiming at her with every shot. I got home and cleaned the birds. Not much was happening. She was tired from her sexual cheating, and I kept to myself. I did change the flash drive in the recorder. I didn't have a chance to listen to what they said. The same thing happened Sunday, except I went straight to hunting. I had all the evidence that I needed. Sunday afternoon, the kids came home, and there was more action with them around. I helped them with their homework. Again, there was no sex. I didn't offer, and she was too tired. I had it set up beforehand to take Monday morning off. I had an appointment with my attorney at 9 a.m. I left at my usual time and went a big boy for breakfast and kill time. I entered my attorney's office at 8:55 a.m. Craig Dill is my attorney, and we have been friends since high school. We always called him Pickles. I sat down and filled him in on what had happened with my wife and her lover. I showed him the pictures, and we listened to the audio together. I had listened to it earlier in the morning in my truck. She had been cheating on me for the last 5 years, and I never had a clue. The audio is full of very interesting statements. She also trashed me pretty good. Craig stared off into space, like he was in a trance or deep meditation. After a few minutes, he looked at me. "What do you want to do?" I looked at him incredulously. "I want to divorce her." I sort of snapped back at him. "Well, let's review all of this. First, this is a no-fault state, and all the evidence of her with her lovers means nothing to the court. So, all the assets are pooled together and split 50 to 50. You have 1 child together, and unless we can prove that she is an unfit mother, the court will probably award her custody, which means that she will get the house, and you will pay child support, house payment, and insurance on the house until his 18th birthday, he said. We reviewed all the expenses against my income, and I was screwed. I can't afford a divorce. I would be broke if I did. Are there any other options? You could go for separation. What does that entail? Basically, it's what you both are doing now, but without marriage vows. The only thing either of you can't do is get married. You would need to have a divorce to do that. We can put some teeth in the document, Craig said. We got down to discussing what I wanted in the separation document. It was what we are doing now. only in written form. She would take care of the kids' needs, the groceries, gas for her car, and keep house. I would take care of the rest of the bills, maintain her car and the house. We could date and screw whoever we wanted. There was to be no sexual actives by either of us in the house with sex buddies. He listed some other activities that were allowed or disallowed in the document. Also, there were penalties for violation of the agreement. It was something like a prenup, where the violator leaves with almost nothing. The agreement is binding for 60 months, unless both parties decided to resume the marriage or get a divorce. I should have these documents ready for you to pick up Wednesday afternoon, he said. We shook hands. I left his office and went back to work. Wednesday after work, I stopped into Craig's office to pick up the document. Here is a copy of the separation document for you to show her. After you both review the document and are in agreement with it, then I need both of you to stop in the office to sign 5 copies, he said. I took the document home with me and I would talk with Jan either tonight or Thursday night, depending on what was going on at home with the kids. Wednesday was a busy night. I had to take the girls to a function at school. Thursday was a much quieter night. There wasn't any school functions that we had to attend. The kids were up in their rooms doing either homework, watching TV, or texting friends. I called Jan into the kitchen to sit at the table with me. I had a cassette player with me and the pictures. I played the cassette while I handed her the pictures. She had a remorse look on her face, with tears trickling down her cheeks. What are you going to do? She asked me softly. Well, obviously you have strung this 12-year marriage along for the last 5 years now, so you must not have much love left for me. Why, Jan? Why would you do this to me? Oh, David, I do love you. I am sorry for what I have done. I don't know why I had to cheat on you like that. I just enjoy different men and the sex and excitement they bring with them. It was only sex. I didn't love any of them. Only you. I'm sorry. I just needed more sex than you could deliver. I could deliver. Do you know just how lame that sounds? What do you mean that I couldn't deliver? It was you that cut back on our sex life. Now I can see why. You were getting all the sex you wanted from other men, I snarled. Jan just hung her head without replying. I opened the folder I had in front of me and retrieved the separation document that is inside the folder. I had this separation document drawn up by Craig Dill, my attorney. I proceed to explain what the document said. At first, she looked fearful, then confused, and finally a faint smile crept into the corners of her mouth. Let me get this straight. We keep doing what we are doing, but I can't have sexual relationships with any guy that I choose? Yes, only not in this house. What about us? There are no more us as far as I am concerned. I told her. She seemed to absorb that as she continued to review the document. So what do we do next? Tomorrow at lunchtime, we meet at Craig's office to sign the documents. He will take them to the court and a judge will sign them. When that is done, we will be legally separated, I said. I plan to make a bedroom down in the basement for me. You can have the master bedroom. I will take care of washing my clothes and keeping my room clean. You have the rest of the basement and house to keep clean and wash yours and the kids' clothes. As far as dinner is concerned, you always get home late anyway. I will fix the kids and me some dinner and you can fend for yourself or eat what is left over from our dinner. I said, so that is the way it's going to be, she huffed. You're the one who wrecked this marriage. I'm trying to salvage a little respect out of this mess, I replied. For the next 2 years, we lived as 2 strangers in the same house. She had the master bedroom and I lived in the basement. I can't believe it. I was living like a troll in the goddamn basement of the house that I was paying for. Jan enjoyed her new freedom. She had been gone a lot during the weekends. I worked all the extra hours I could for 3 brothers. I also worked the weekends for Roger on side jobs when I could. The kids were old enough to take care of themselves. All the extra money I earned from 3 brothers, I used to make extra house payments. All the money Roger paid me was cash, which I stashed away. I figured once I got my financial situation in good shape, I would divorce her. At the end of the 2nd year of our separation, Jan was gone for most of the week. When she returned home, she looked different. She had plastic surgery done to her face and had boob enhancement work done. She looks at least 10 years younger. I wondered how she paid for the enhancement work done on her. I thought to myself, I knew that both of our insurances would not pay for that type of surgery. You look different. Care to elaborate? I commented. I had a little work done on my face, some nip and tucks to smooth the wrinkles away. Also, I had some boob enhancement work done. I had them made a little bigger and fuller, she said, smiling at me. Care for a test drive? She purred. I probably can't afford your price, I mumbled back. You probably can't, she smirked as she walked back toward her bedroom. I wanted to ask her just how she paid for the surgery, but I couldn't pull the trigger to say the words. I just watched her as she walked toward her bedroom, with a little wiggle to her hips as she walked. God, she has a great body. I started to mourn my loss of her, then the remembrance of her cheating on me for 5 years. Also her words on the audio tape burned in my stomach just like heartburn. I shook my head to get rid of those thoughts of her and went down into the basement to work out. Davy's best friend is Timmy Adams. They were together all the time and have classes together. I have met Timmy's mother at a number of school functions over the years, as well as a number of times that I either dropped Davy off or picked him up at Timmy's house. Timmy's mother's name is Tracy, and his sister's name is Tammy. I have dated Tracy on and off over the past year. Tracy has auburn hair and green eyes that seem to always sparkle. She is 5 foot 3 inches tall and weighs somewhere between 100 and 110 pounds. She has a nice figure. Tracy works for the local hospital as an administration assistant. Her husband was killed in an accident at work. It was the month of April and Davy's birthday is coming up. I talked it over with him on what he wanted to do for his birthday, which was this Friday. We discussed a number of things when I suggested a bowling party with pizza and pop. He thought that was a great idea. So we invited Tracy and her family, and he picked 2 other boys that he was good friends with. At the last minute, June and July decided to join the party. Friday was a busy night at the bowling lanes, so we had the party Saturday afternoon. Davy got a new Xbox for Christmas, so now he needed some games for it. I gave him $50, his sisters gave him $10 apiece, and Davy's 2 pals each gave him $10. Tracy gave him a t-shirt with his favorite band on it and cargo shorts. Dad, this is the best birthday party that I ever had, Davy said. It seemed that nobody noticed that Jan wasn't at the party. Tracy made a nice chocolate cake. We sang happy birthday to Davy, and he blew out the candles on his cake. We all had cake and ice cream. Tracy had us take the extra cake home with us when we left. Sunday, I was working with Roger on a side job. Timmy and Davy were in his room playing video games and eating cake. The twins were at the counter eating some of the leftover birthday cake when Jan got home for her weekend of fun. She wheeled her bag into the house. That cake sure looks good. Where did you get it? She asked the girls. It was left over from Davy's birthday party yesterday, June replied. Birthday party? Jan exclaimed. Yeah, it was Davy's birthday Friday, and we celebrated it Saturday at the bowling alley with a pizza party. Mrs. Adams made a chocolate birthday cake, and was it ever good? July laughed. Oh, my God. I completely forgot about Davy's birthday, Jan gasped, as she grabbed her purse and left. I arrived home just in time to see Jan's car turn the corner. Where was your mother going? I asked the girls, not that I really gave a damn about her. She forgot Davy's birthday and is going to the mall to get him something, July replied. Jan returned a short time later with a couple of wrapped gifts and a card. She knocked on Davy's bedroom door and entered. I heard him thank his mother for the gifts. As she left and walked toward us, I could see a smile on her face. I acknowledged her as we passed. I just finished taking a shower after a hard day working for Roger. Another year had passed, and it was Davy's birthday again. I can't believe that Davy was 15 years old already. We, Davy, June, July, and me, were at Tracy's house. She was making Davy a birthday dinner. She made her special meatloaf, with a stick of polished sausage in the middle. She injects melted cheese in the meatloaf, and she covered it with ketchup and lots of bacon. As Emerald says, pork fat rules. The rest of the meal consisted of mashed potatoes and brown gravy, with some meatloaf fat juices stirred into the gravy. We had green beans and coleslaw, Davy loves coleslaw, along with chocolate cake and ice cream for dessert. He got some nice gifts from everybody. As I walked out with the kids, I thanked Tracy. I think I will serve Jan with divorce papers in July, I said. Oh God, David, that is the best news of the day, she gusted. You've been very patient, and it's time for me to get my affairs in order and move on with my life. A move that I hope includes you. I hope it does too. She put her arms around my neck and gave me a scorching kiss. First week of June and Tracy called me. She was all excited. You will never guess what just happened to me? I bet that you just won the lottery. No, I did not. Try again. Did you just get a big promotion at work? Wrong again. Care to try one more time? No. I give. What happened to you today? My folks plan to move into a condo. They want to trade houses with me. What do you think of that news? Really? Wow, that was good news for you. Yes, once all the moves are made, then they will put my old house up for sale and use the proceeds toward their new condo. Well, that sure sounds like a good plan to me. Her folks' house was larger than Tracy's house and a lot more valuable. But there was always a but. Her folks' house was older and will need some work to bring it up to modern standards. I'm not sure just how you go about swapping houses, but when you do, you should then go to the bank and get a loan on the house for $50,000. That amount should be plenty to improve the house. I would think the bank should have no problems giving you a loan. Your folks' house had to be worth at least double that amount, I told her. Why should I do that? Tracy asked. Tracy, their house needed a lot of work to modernize it. A new roof, paint the inside and out, new carpet, new appliances, and other cosmetic things, and some new furniture. I think I can turn that $50,000 into $75,000, with me doing a lot of the work and favors owed me, I told her. For that past 6 months, I had a friend who was a private investigator. He followed Jan on and off for a 6-month period. I dug him a large pond and did all the landscaping around the pond in return for his services. The end of June, he gave a full report with photos, video, and audio of her activities. Are you kidding me? She's working for an escort service. I laughed. Yeah, I could not believe it myself, but you can see by the evidence just what she was doing, he said. I wondered just where she got the money to have the upgrades on her face and boobs, I commented. It was very evident that if she had been working as an escort, and if she was any good, she could easily afford the enhancements. By the way, you paid for her to provide services to one of my male operatives. That is how we got some of these great video and pictures. He had a video camera in his carry bag, which took these vids and pictures, he told me. Jan was sitting at the kitchen table reading the paper. The girls were over at a friend's house, and Davy was at Timmy's house. I sat down at the table with her, with my packet of information with me. Well, what do I owe the pleasure of your company? She asked. I just smiled and started to remove the divorce papers and the rest of the information that I had. I passed over the divorce papers that Craig prepared for me over to her. Jan, it's time that we end this separation that we have and proceed to end this marriage. This is the divorce papers. We both keep what was ours. You can have the house until Davy turns 18, and then it has to be sold, and we split the money 50-50ths. There will no child support or spouse maintenance. You cover all of the bills on both girls and yourself. I will cover Davy's expenses. I will pay the taxes on the house and any house maintenance until the house is sold after Davy's 18th birthday. You have insurance for both you and the girls from your place of employment, and I'll cover Davy. If Davy chooses to live with me, you still can have the house until he reaches his 18th birthday, or we can have the house surprised and you can buy me out. She sat there for a while reading the divorce papers. I could just about see her mind working, trying to figure out how to squeeze some more money out of me. Just how do you propose that I do all of this? You make a lot more at your job than I do at mine. Your retirement is a lot bigger than mine. I pulled out the rest of the information in my envelope and passed it over to her. It contained the PI report and some pictures. I think that your second job provides a hell of a lot more money than you're letting on. I'll bet that the IRS would love to receive some of this information that I have. The W-2s that you give me each year are far short of the money that you actually earn. She had money scattered all over the country and some in offshore banks as well. She started to turn red when she realized that she wasn't as smart as she thought she was with her extra income. You need to go to Craig's office and sign the papers so he can witness your signature. A stroke of the pen terminated the marriage, although it took a number of years to get to this point. Plus, after Craig files the paperwork, it will take 6 months for the divorce to be final. Meanwhile, I had given up living like a troll in the basement and got myself a small 2-bedroom apartment. A funny thing was that as soon as I moved out of the house, Davy claimed my bedroom in the basement. Why? I asked him. He responded, Dad, there is more space in your old bedroom, and also I get away from the girls and Mom. It was the week after 4th of July, and Tracy got the house from her folks. She was busy with the bank getting a loan secured for the improvements that we discussed. In August, Tracy got her loan from the bank, and I went to work spending her money on improvements. I started to demolish the inside of the house. I had the house rewired, painted inside and outside, new roof, new carpet and flooring, new appliances, and new furniture. It helped to work for a very large general contractor. We had tons of stuff in a couple of warehouses. Most of the stuff was brand new, or installed and then removed. I got what I needed from the warehouse, paying pennies on the dollar for the items that I took. I completed everything, and she moved in on the 1st of November. No, I did not move in with Tracy in her new house. I still had my apartment, and I stayed there. I did spend a few nights christening in her new bed. Time flew fast as November ended, and December was half over with. Tracy's work Christmas party was approaching fast. That was all she talked about for the past week. The party was on Saturday, and I had to work that day. We were building an addition to Michigan City College. The job was about 20 miles from River City. The load of steel was supposed to be at the job site mid-afternoon. It finally showed up at 7 p.m. It took me 2 hours to get it unloaded. I tried to call Tracy and let her know that I was running late, but my calls just went to voicemail. I hurried up and drove home, took a shower and changed into my good clothes. I then raced to the hotel, and it was almost 10 p.m. when I arrived. I stood off to the side of the big ballroom, getting my bearings, and looked for Tracy. I spotted her a short distance away talking with some of her coworkers. I noticed this big guy kept pestering her about something, and I could see her shake her head no. Finally, he dragged her out on the dance floor. They danced a fast dance, and the next song was a slow song. He tried to pull her close to him. I was about ready to go out and rescue her when she slapped his face and walked back to her coworker's table. I noticed the big guy. He was at least a half a head taller than me and had me by 50 pounds, and his buddies walking off the dance floor and toward the bathroom, so I followed them. I heard one of his buddies call him Big Ed. We all went into the bathroom, and Big Ed was one of those guys with a loud voice and was spouting off. You know that Tracy Adams is so hot. I had her on the dance floor, and she had me so hard that when that slow song started, I grabbed and pulled her tight to me so she could feel my body. I knew that got her hot too, Big Ed boasted. One of the guys snickered and said, "You're so hot that she slapped your face." Big Ed gave him a shut the hell up look. "That 304 will be mine tonight. She just doesn't know it yet." Big Ed patted his pocket and said, "I have some insurance which once poured into her drink will make her putty in my hands. If you guys are nice to me, I just might let you have her after I am done with her." He gave an obnoxious laugh, and they all laughed with him as they walked out of the bathroom. I followed them out. Big Ed stopped at the edge of the dance floor looking over at Tracy talking with her friends. The other three guys left him, and they walked over toward the bar. I tapped Big Ed on the shoulder, and he turned back looking at me with a scowl look on his face. "What the hell do you want? Come here a moment, I have something to tell you." I led him over to a dark corner of the room. As I turned to face him, my hand snapped up to his throat, and I put a vice grip lock on his throat. He reached over to grab my hand with a surprised look in his eyes. "Don't move or touch my hand, or I will rip your Adam's apple out of your throat," I snarled at him. His hand stopped in midair, and he had a shocked look on his face as he started to gasp for some air. "Now listen closely to what I have to say. Tracy Adams is my girlfriend, and if I ever hear any more talk about you bothering her, they will never find you again, because your body will be buried under 100 yards of concrete. Do you understand me?" He nodded his head yes, as his eyes seemed to bulge out and his face was starting to turn blue. I let him go, and he grabbed his throat, gasping for air and coughing. "I think that it was time for you and your three friends to leave the party, don't you agree?" He was still coughing as he staggered over to the bar and got his three friends, and they left the party. I figured that I need to be careful. Somewhere down the road there will some type of revenge coming into play. I'm glad that I have a CCW permit, and most of the time I carry some type of a pistol on me. It was unknown to me, but one of the hospital's administrators had overheard my discussion with Big Ed. He approached me and thanked me for intervening and stopping what could have been a serious incident. "I'll have a discussion with Mr. Ed Murray and let him know that this type of behavior was uncalled for, and if it happens again, I'll take some type of action," he told me. I started walking toward Tracy's table, but she spotted me first and gave a scream. She raced to me and leaped into my arms, giving me a scorching kiss. She broke the kiss and led me over to the table she was sharing with her friends. She proceeded to introduce me to everyone. Just then a slow song started to play, and she dragged me on the dance floor. All this happened faster than my discussion with Big Ed. When we got done with the dance, there was a plate of food waiting for me at the table, and Tracy left to go to the bar to get us some drinks. I had a good time at the party, but a better time when we got home and into her bed. She was like a tornado, and when she was finally done with me, I was whipped. I never moved the rest of the night and woke up at 9 a.m. the next morning. Tracy was sleeping next to me, and we were all wrapped with each other and the covers. One of my best friends was dating one of Tracy's girlfriends. We had made plans to go to the New Year's Eve party at the MGM Grand in Detroit. We had a reservation for the party, and we both had room reservations. We got there at 3 p.m., and the girls had a reservation at the beauty shop to get their hair, nails, and makeup done at 4 p.m. At 5:30 p.m., we met the girls in our rooms to get ready for the party. The girls got ready in my room. Jim and I got ready in his and told the girls we would meet them in the casino. It took us 10 minutes, and I knew that the girls will spend at least an hour getting ready. We had a nice time at the party. After we finished dinner, and the casino was getting the band ready, I was standing up looking around the room. I started to laugh. "What is so funny?" Tracy asked. "Do you see that blonde standing over by the bar on the far side?" "Yes, what was so funny about her?" "That my dear is my ex-wife Jan." Tracy put her hand up to her mouth. "Oh, I think I'll go over and make myself known to her." I walked toward Jan, as she was leaving the bar with a gentleman with her arm looped through his arm. I bet she must be working tonight in her job as an escort. She will shit a gold brick when she sees me here. I walked up behind her just as they got to their table. Hello, Jan. She whirled around, and her mouth dropped open. David. David, what are you doing here? Just like you enjoying the party. Who are you with? Well, you remember my buddy, Jimmy. He is over there with those two beautiful ladies. Anyway, he was at a big stag party in Detroit a month ago and won one of the major prizes. It was a prize for two guys for the New Year's Eve party at the MGM Grand Casino in Detroit. It included rooms, admission to the party, escort dates for the party, and some spending cash. So, Jimmy invited me to come along. We both have two beautiful dates for the night. Just then the band started up with a slow song. I looked over to my wife's date. Would you mind if I had this dance with my wife? I asked him. His eyes opened wide and he looked at Jan. I could hear her tell him it was okay, and she would explain it to him after this dance. We had a nice dance, talked a little bit about the kids, and when the song finished, I took her back to her table and thanked her for the dance. The rest of the night, I danced mostly with Tracy and a few with her friend, and I could feel Jan staring daggers at us all night long. That pretty much brings up to this point in time, I said to the captain. Mr. Kent, that was simple and amazing story, and thank you for sharing it with me, he said. The captain came through for me, and I surprised Tracy with the engagement proposal. We married shortly after the cruise. Davy moved with me into Tracy's house. I have not seen much of Jan, but I assume that she is still working as an escort. The twins are in college, and I see them when they come home when the school was on vacation. Things were going very good between Tracy and I, but I have cut back on the amount of time that I go duck hunting. You know the saying, once bitten, twice shy. Besides, instead of shooting at birds on Saturday morning, I spend that time still in bed with Tracy making love to her. Now for the second story. Hi, my name is Austin James Smith, but everyone calls me AJ. I was a good student in high school, carrying a 3.33 grade point average. I probably would have gotten some scholarships, but not enough to pay my way through college. My dad died during my freshman year in a work accident. Mom got a nice payout, enough for us to live on, but not enough money for college. She still had Scooter, my sister Sally, to take care of. Mom and I talked with my guidance counselor. He laid out a number of options, and the best one was joining the armed forces. They had the GI Bill, which would help pay for college. So right after graduation, I enlisted in the Army. I spent 8 years in the Army, including 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. When I got back home, I applied to the University of Michigan. They accepted me and I started engineering classes in the fall. I had taken a lot of basic courses while I was in the Army, and those credits were accepted by University of M. But I still needed 2.5 years to get my degree. The school held a job fair before classes started. I met some people from Ford there. A few days later, I got a letter inviting me to come to the Ford headquarters in Dearborn, Michigan, to meet a Mr. James in the design division. Mr. James said, I want to tell you how impressed Ford is of your credentials. We want to make sure you finish your engineering degree. We intend to offer you a full-time position when you graduate. In the meantime, we have a part-time opening with flexible hours that shouldn't interfere with your classwork. You can work as many hours as your schedule will allow, but make sure that school comes before work. I was able to arrange my class schedule so I could work part-time for Ford without work interfering with classes. During the spring and summer semesters, I took a couple of classes in each semester to make sure that I could graduate at the completion of the winter semester. I had finished the summer semester just before Labor Day and took a week off from work to take a break and recharge my batteries. I had been going strong for a full year with school and work. Bob, a friend from work, invited me to a Labor Day cookout. We went to the same high school, but he was a grade ahead of me. AJ, just show up, there'll be plenty to eat and drink. Be there around noon, he said. I was running about 20 minutes late when I pulled into his driveway. I knew some of the people who were there from either school or work. Bob has a large backyard with an above-ground pool. I noticed there were some kids playing in the pool. 2 big grills were cooking different foods. Bob has a large 3.5-car unattached garage. Inside the garage were tables loaded down with food. On the other side of the garage were coolers filled with different types of beverages. I grabbed a beer and stopped to chat with a few classmates. While I talked with them, I kept staring at a blonde girl by the pool. She sure in the hell looked familiar, but I couldn't place just where we might have crossed paths before. I started to walk toward her when Bob grabbed me by the arm. Sandy, this is my friend from work, AJ. AJ, this is my wife, Sandy, he said. We exchanged greetings, and I thanked her for inviting me to the party. Come on, I want you to meet someone, he said. We walked toward to the pool, in the direction of the blonde gal. Hi, Ivy, Bob said. Hi, Bob, Ivy replied. I remembered, Beatrice Ivory Smith, She was 2 years behind me in high school. If I remembered right, she had dated a guy named Kevin Smith, a year behind me. I also remembered that she hated to be called Beatrice or B, always goes by Ivy. She was named after her 2 grandmothers. Ivy was a beautiful blonde, about 5'5", maybe 120 pounds, with a really nice figure. Hey, Ivy, do you remember AJ? He graduated a couple years before you, Bob said. Yeah, I do. Hi, AJ, Ivy said. Hi, Ivy, good to see you again, I replied. Hey, I have to go check on the grilling. Catch you guys later, Bob said as he left heading toward the grills. Ivy and I chatted for a few minutes. Then she called to a little blonde girl. Denise, honey, lunch is being served. It's time for you to get out of the pool, Ivy said. I could see the little girl in the pool. Mom, do I have to get out to eat? We are having fun in the pool, she responded. Come on, honey, you can go back in after you have some lunch. Okay, Mom. Would you like to join us, AJ? I'd love to. Denise was a little chatterbox, asking hundreds of questions. Are you going to be my new daddy? Denise asked. I choked a little bit on my food and glanced over at Ivy, who was turning bright red. Denise, honey, AJ is just an old friend from Mom's high school, Ivy told her. I guess I had better fill you in on what has happened to us, Ivy said to me. Please do, I replied. Kevin and I got married right out of high school. A couple years later, we had Denise. We were talking about having another child when Kevin was killed over a year ago in an accident at work. I got a nice settlement, but it's not the same without him. Kevin and I were soulmates. We just got a new house, and thankfully he had insurance that paid it off in case of his death. I filled her in on my life since I graduated from high school. I told her of my time in the army and the places I'd been. We finished our lunch and exchanged phone numbers. She took her daughter back to the pool, and I went over to a few friends that I had not talked with. I had a good time at the party and thanked my host Bob. What did you think of Ivy? He asked. We had a nice chat. Are you going to date her? Damn, Bob, I just met her. I have plenty on my plate with school and work. Okay, just glad that you had a good time. Thanks for inviting me. See you at work. I was extremely busy during the first 3 weeks of September with classes and work. I ran into Bob toward the end of the 3rd week. Hi, Bob. I am thinking of giving Ivy a call this weekend. You should have called her sooner. I hear she is dating a new guy, and Sandy thinks they're getting serious. Well, I guess I'm a little late with my phone call to her. I hope things work out okay for her, I said, and left to return to my workstation. For the next few months, I worked hard at my classes and filled in at work when I could. Ford is very pleased with my progress both in school and at the office. Then, the Sunday after Halloween, I got a call from Bob's wife. Hi AJ, this is Sandy, Bob's wife. I would like to invite you to Bob's birthday party next Saturday. Oh, hi Sandy, I would love to come. What time does the party start, and should I bring anything? No, I have everything. Just show up and have a good time. The party will start around 5. Bob knows about it, so it is not a secret. It is just a party with some of his friends. I pulled into Bob's driveway Saturday afternoon, just a touch late. I walked in the house and gave Sandy a hug and thanks for the inviting me. I shook Bob's hand and wished him a happy birthday. He thanked me and told me there is cold beer at the bar with my name on it. I grabbed a beer and surveyed the crowd when a familiar face came over. Hi AJ, good to see you, Ivy said. Ivy, good to see you too. How are you? I replied. I am fine, and you? Good, thanks for asking. So are you dating anyone special yet? No, between school and work, I don't seem to have a lot of free time. How about you? Are you still in that special relationship? No, that sort of fell apart last month, and I'm not dating anybody steady right now. We chatted for a while, until Sandy called out and said that dinner is ready. Ivy and I sat next to each other at the dinner table and had an enjoyable conversation. She told me, my mother is watching Denise, so that she could go to this party. After dinner, the birthday cake is brought out, and we all sang happy birthday to Bob. After eating cake and ice cream, Bob opened his presents. Music and dancing followed the opening of the presents, and the party started to wind down around 11. Ivy and I made a dinner for next Saturday night. We dated frequently for the next 5 weeks. Ivy works for a big bank, and she invited me as her date for the bank's big New Year's Eve party. New Year's Eve, I picked Ivy up at her house. She looks absolutely stunning. She wore a black, low-cut, form-fitting cocktail dress that stopped midway down her thighs. Black nylons and shoes, with a set of white pearls around her neck, accessorized her dress. Thank God I bought her a wrist corsage, because I would have no idea just where to pin a corsage on her dress. We had a great time at the party. They had a cocktail hour with hors d'oeuvres, followed by a wonderful dinner. Afterwards, we danced the night away, with a big kiss at midnight. The party started to wind down around 1 a.m. Ivy and I said our goodbyes to the people at our table and left for her house. When we arrived, she closed and locked the door behind us. We had sex. As I held her tightly once we were done, I softly whispered into her ear, "Happy New Year." Things went well for us. We were dating each other exclusively. At Easter time, I gave her a ring, and in June we were married. On our honeymoon we took a cruise, but I'll be damned if I saw any of the islands. I moved out of my apartment and into her house. Within a couple of years we had David, and 18 months later came Linda. We needed a bigger house. Her mom and dad agreed to sell their house and downsize. We traded houses with them and paid them difference in the selling price. They had a nice 4-bedroom house, which was too big for just 2 people. Their house also had a big backyard perfect for the kids to play in. The trade worked out well for both of us. Their neighborhood was trending toward people with younger families, and all their old friends had sold their houses and moved elsewhere. Our old neighborhood has mostly older people living there. That fit in well with her folks. Ouch, damn, that hurt, I said to myself. I walked back to the ball return, rubbing my arm and shoulder. It felt like my arm was stabbed by a knife. I rubbed my arm while I waited for my bowling ball to return. I grabbed my ball and did a couple of practice swings. I set myself and approached the foul line. Halfway through my downswing, I felt the stabbing pain in my arm and the ball shot into the gutter. The pain almost put me down on my knees. I walked back to the table where my teammates were sitting, rubbing my shoulder. "AJ, are you going to be able to bowl?" Nick asked. I just shook my head in disgust and sat down in my chair, pissed. "What happened?" Ralph asked. "I have no idea, just a sharp pain in my upper arm shoulder area. There is no way that I can bowl tonight." I talked with the guys for a few minutes and got my bowling back. I put all my equipment away in the bag while I sat at the table with the guys. I was pissed. I just got a new bowling ball and really wanted to try it out. It was the Storm IQ Nano. It smells like apple cider. Storm puts different scents in all their bowling balls. "I am going home to put some deep heat on my arm and take a couple of Aleve," I told the guys. I walked out to my expedition. I struggled to get my bowl bag into the back. It's hard to lift the 3-ball bag up that high with a sore arm. I settled into the driver's seat and put on my favorite oldies radio station. While driving, I reminisced about what had happened in my life. I had a loving wife of 10 years, 3 kids, 2 were mine. One I loved as mine. I had a nice home and vehicle and a good-paying job. My wife had a good job and was a good mother to the children. Life had treated me pretty well. I only lived about 10 minutes from the bowling lanes. As I turned on my street, Seeger started to sing Ivory. Normally on bowling nights, I never got home before 10 p.m., but that night the clock on my expedition said 8:05 p.m. I noticed a car parked on the street in front of our house. I didn't pay much attention to it as I pulled into the driveway. I exited the vehicle and opened the back door. I was humming the song Ivory to myself as I entered the house. It was awfully quiet in the house and odd that I didn't hear the kids making noise. I knew they would be up because there was no school the next day for a teacher in service day. Whatever the hell that is. Maybe she went someplace with the kids. I never did check to see if her car was in the garage. I thought, first things first, I needed to get some deep heat on my arm. I walked up the stairs still humming Ivory. I stopped because I heard some noise coming from our bedroom. I walked slowly to our bedroom door and softly pushed it open. Ivy was on the bed with some guy that I didn't recognize. I gave a loud gasp and went into some type of mental shock. Somehow, I just couldn't believe my eyes. Ivy must have heard my gasp because she stopped screwing the guy. "AJ, would you go downstairs to the kitchen? As soon as I am done here, I will be down to explain everything to you," she said. I knew my marriage was over and I really wanted to punch her in the nose, but I also knew she was not worth going to jail. I turned and walked down the stairs to the kitchen table. 3 minutes or so later, she came down wearing a robe and dragging a small suitcase behind her. "AJ, I'm sorry that you had to see that. I didn't want you to find out that way. I sent the kids to my folks' house for the weekend. I planned on telling you this weekend that our marriage is over and that I filed for divorce today. You should get the papers served on you either Tuesday or Wednesday," she said. I just stared at her and then mouthed the word, "Why?" "I still love you, but not the way a wife should love her husband. My first husband, Kevin, was my soulmate. When we made love, the electricity just flowed between us. He would just touch me sexually and I would have a climax. No man has ever made love to me like Kevin did. You're a good lover, but not like Kevin," she continued. "Ever since I met you, I was screwing different men, trying to find the one that would light my fire. You were my security blanket. I always had you to fall back to. You were a kind and loving husband and a good father to the children. All through our marriage, I must have screwed a different guy every month. Hell, I am not even sure if our 2 children are really yours." Then Doug came to work at the bank. When Doug and I made love, he sent that same flow of electricity through me. I knew that I had found my new soulmate. I am sorry about all of this, AJ. I packed a bag with some of your clothes. I'll pack the rest up this weekend and put them out by the storage shed. You can pick them up anytime after this weekend, she said. I was just staring at her all the time she spoke to me. I never said a word or asked any questions. She continued, "Don't fight me on the divorce. We'll split everything 50-50. We can both keep our retirements, but you will have to pay me the difference between the retirements to make it fair. Also, you'll have to pay child support, but no support maintenance to me. If you don't go along with this, I will make it very difficult for you to see the children." I just stared at her. "For God's sakes, AJ, say something," she snapped. I continued to stare at her without saying a word. She got up and walked up the stairs, without a word or a look back. A couple of minutes after she disappeared from sight, I got up and grabbed my cell phone, which had been recording the whole conversation. I grabbed the bag she packed with my right arm. Ouch, that hurt. All during that time, I had forgotten about my injured arm. I switched the bag to my other hand and left the house. I put the bag in the Expedition, got in, and drove around aimlessly. Somehow I ended up back at the bowling alley. It seemed like forever since she dropped the bomb on me. In reality, it was just over an hour. I'm not sure why I stopped there. I guess I had no place else to go to. When I walked into the bowling alley, the guys were still sitting at the table. They must have just finished bowling. "Hey, look what the cat just dragged in," Terry hooted. "Wow, you look awful," Nick said. "What happened to you?" Dave asked. I sat down at the table with tears running down my cheeks. I laid my head on my hands on the table and started to sob. They looked at me with stunned faces. After I had calmed down, they worked the story out of me. "I can't believe that 304, Ralph said. I looked around at the guys and noticed both Terry and Dave had their cell phones out and they were talking on them. Ralph and Nick were trying to cheer me up. Terry said, "I just talked with my cousin. He practices family law and is a really good divorce attorney. He wants to meet with you at lunchtime tomorrow." Dave spoke up, "My brother has a farm with a big empty shed. He'll let me borrow his truck and trailer to move all your stuff to his shed for storage. I have a spare bedroom that you can stay in until you find a place," Nick said. We talked strategy over a pitcher of beer and made a plan. We agreed to meet at my house right after my soon-to-be ex-wife leaves to take the kids to school and goes to work. We got a few other friends to help. One guy was to be the spy, keeping tabs on Ivy and letting us know if she leaves the bank. It is nice to have friends. They all planned to take Friday off to help me. Friday morning, right after Ivy left with the kids, 2 pickup trucks with trailers were at my storage shed getting all my stuff. There was nothing in the shed that belonged to Ivy. I was in the house packing up all the rest of my possessions and clothes. I met with Marty, my attorney, at noon. While we had sandwiches in his office, I retold my tale of the last couple of days. I told him about our financial situation. Ivy took care of the gas for her car, groceries, hers, and the children's expenses. I took care of the house payment, taxes, household expenses, and maintenance, the maintenance of both cars, and any other expenses that occurred. We both had our own retirement funds. I made 3 times as much at Ford as Ivy did at the bank. Marty asked, "What just did I want to do when I received the divorced papers?" "I want to fight her tooth and nail. If I am going down, I plan on fighting to the bitter end," I told him. "Marty, I want to cash out my retirement and put it in a trust fund for my kids' college fund. I want you to be the trustee of the trust fund for both Linda and David. I don't care if I'm their biological father or not. I raised them as my kids, and I will take care of their college fund. I know that Ivy won't. The judge might by setting up a trust fund with your retirement money for the children's education," he said. What I didn't tell him is that I was getting the rest of my money out of Dodge. There was no way that 304 was getting any of my money. When I got done with her in the divorce, I planned to leave her broke. I moved most of my money overseas into a secure bank. I had the guys slowly sell off all of my possessions that were in the farm storage shed. I sold my Expedition and bought a junker. I had Marty set up another trust fund for both kids, which had $100,000 to be split between the 2 of them. The trust would pay each of them $100 a month. Any additional withdrawals would need the Marty's approval. When each of my kids reached 25, their portion of trust fund would be turned over to them. Then they could do with it as they pleased, without any strings attached. At that time, David was 8 years old, and Linda was 6. The 50 grand each would last them at least 40 years if they stayed on course and didn't deplete it when they got 25. Marty was to monitor them and make sure Ivy didn't take their money and spend it on herself. I had set up specific guidelines on just how the money could be used. I got served the divorce papers on the following Tuesday. She sued for irreconcilable difference, and we counter-sue for infidelity. She got pissed and withheld the kids from me. We ended up going to court so I could get visitation rights for the kids. The divorce didn't go the way Ivy had planned for it to go. I fought her on every turn. We finally ended up in court. We couldn't agree on anything. I had quit my job at Ford and financial documents that showed I am cash poor. I prepaid my attorney a huge retainer to handle all the work that I am throwing his way. We have been fighting over this divorce for the last 6 months. In court, she claimed that I had more than $500,000, but she and her attorney couldn't prove it. She was pissed that I had set up trust funds for the kids' education and their well-being. Her attorney tried to get the judge to dissolve both trust funds. The judge ruled that the trust funds were legal because they were for the kids only, with no way for me to access them. Next, they turned their attention to getting twice as much child support as the normal guidelines provide. Your Honor, may I address the bench? I asked. Go ahead, Mr. Smith. Your Honor, I have reasonable doubt that David and Linda are not my children, I said. Ivy jumped up screaming, You lying, a hole they are to your kids. The judge bangs his gavel a few times. Counselor, would you please keep your client under control, or I will have her removed from my courtroom, he said. Ivy's attorney is busy trying to calm her down. The judge turned his attention to me. Now just what causes you to make that statement, Mr. Smith, he said. Your Honor, if I could play this recording on my cell phone, which might prove my statement? I asked. Ivy's attorney stood up. Your Honor, I object. We haven't heard this recording, and we have no way to determine if this recording is actual and factual, he stated. Objections noted, but I would like to hear the recording. Then I will rule if I will admit it as evidence, the judge said. Play the recording, Mr. Smith. I played the whole recording of her admitting to her numerous affairs and saying that she didn't know if the kids were really mine or not. When the recording is finished, I turned it off and looked at the judge. He looked pissed. The judge snapped, Counselors, please approach the bench. There is a lot of whispering and arguing. Finally, both attorneys returned to their tables. I am recessing this case for 20 days. I want Mr. and Mrs. Smith and their children, David and Linda, subjected to parental DNA tests. I expect these results to be complete by the time we come back to court for this case, he said. 20 days later, we are in court. I am still in the reserves, so I wore my full dress uniform with all my medals and ribbons. I wanted the judge to know that I am a highly decorated veteran. The DNA test confirmed the kids were mine, as I expected they would. I just wanted to keep Ivy off guard and pissed. In discovery, I had to produce the last 3 years of tax returns. The returns showed that I made $91,000 from Ford, and Ivy made $31,200 at the bank. With my bonus figured in, I made $1,750 per week. After taxes, I brought home around $1,300. When the judge agreed with Ivy on what my child support, spousal maintenance, house payment, taxes, and maintenance would be, I was left with $250 per week to live on. Your Honor, may I speak? I asked. Go ahead, Mr. Smith. I'm the victim here. I didn't ask her to cheat and destroy my marriage. I never did anything wrong. I have always been a good provider. I loved her. I love my children. She got the house she wanted and all the toys to go with the house. She got the car she wanted. She got all the men she wanted. But I am the one who gets punished here. How is that fair? Where is the justice? I said, Mr. Smith, that is the way the law is set up. We are a law-abiding society and must live with the laws as they are written, he responded to me. Your Honor, this is supposed to be a 50-50 split state. I don't see a 50-50 split here, I said. With children involved, the split becomes different, he replied. Your Honor, I have no way to pay. I don't have a job, and I don't have any type of income. The rest of my savings is tied up in the trust funds for my children. I have no way to make these types of payments, I said. Well, Mr. Smith, you will just have to get your old job back, or find a different job. As of right now, those payments stand, he said. Your Honor, I was in the Army for 8 years, 3 tours between Iraq and Afghanistan. Over there, the main law was to survive. You watched your buddy's back, and he watched yours. You took no chances, because one mistake and your life could end, or the life of your buddy. Do you know what it's like to watch one of your buddies get their head blown apart, and their brains and blood splattered all over you? Or to have a RPG hit your vehicle, and have pieces of shrapnel flying around the inside of the Hummer, slicing up your friends? There is honor there. Ivy's actions have shown a total lack of honor, I said. Mr. Smith, we all appreciate your valuable service to our country, but that has nothing to do with this divorce case. Is there anything else that you would like to add? He asked. Yes, Your Honor. Go ahead, Mr. Smith. Just suppose for the sake of argument that instead of me standing here, you have a different person who is a decorated soldier of the Desert Wars. Unknown to you, this soldier suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. Somehow, he ends up with a pistol in his hands. Just how the gun got there is unknown. Bang. One shot between the eyes of the judge and bang. One shot between the eyes of his soon-to-be ex-wife. All this happens in about 5 seconds. He puts the gun down on the table and sits down in his chair with his hands behind his head. I paused for a second to catch my breath. The bailiff secures the soldier and takes him to a holding cell and then on to jail. Meanwhile, the judge and the ex-wife are both dead. The soldier tells his attorney to contact the army and tell them what happened. The army swoops down with a couple of JAG officers and some doctors. They wave a bunch of writs and grab the soldier. They take the soldier back to Washington. After a few years of observation and testing, the soldier declared free of post-traumatic stress disorder and released from all pending charges. Now, Your Honor, the soldier is free, and both the judge and the ex-wife are still dead. But that is the law. Is it a good law for the judge and the ex-wife? The judge is dead and his family is mourning the judge's death. The ex-wife is dead, but nobody will mourn her loss. The law is on the side of the soldier. Is this what you call justice? Well, you can imagine that the judge was very pissed and wanted me strung up on charges, but ended up just citing me for contempt of court. I guess that he didn't appreciate my story of how the law should work. I was given the choice of 30 days in jail or $1,000 fine. Since I don't have any money and no job to go to, I took the 30 days. But it wasn't so bad in there. I was some kind of hero for standing up to the judge like that. In addition, being a war vet helped my standings in jail. After my 30 days are finished, I was released. Marty was there to pick me up. He took me back to my tiny apartment where he had my junker parked in its proper space. He filled me in on what had happened in the last 30 days. It seems that the bank got nervous and transferred Doug to the Dallas office. Marty never did hear if Doug's wife divorced him. Ivy was demoted to teller. She ended up filling in at different banks where they were short of help for a day. She took a $5 cut in pay also. The next day I went to the Ford offices and talked to my former boss. We had set up before the divorce that once I was ready, they would rehire me and send me to their new plant in Kamakari, Brazil. Marty got me some time with my kids before I left. A week later, I boarded a plane for New York, where I would take a plane to the Cayman Islands. I spent a week there resting and had $200,000 transferred to my bank in Kamakari. I left the Cayman Islands for my new home, Kamakari. After a couple of months there, I met Maria Amanda Garcia. Maria was 3/4 Brazilian and 1/4 Italian. Extremely beautiful, with light Spanish features. She was tall, 5 feet 8 inches, maybe weighed 125 pounds, with long black hair, brown eyes, hourglass figure. She had a beautiful 3-year-old daughter, Monique, named after her grandmother. Maria was a widow. Her husband had been killed in a car accident 2 years before we met. She got a huge settlement from the driver's family. Also, her family was very well-to-do. Within 3 months we were married, and 4 months later our son Victor was born. He was named after Maria's father. We purchased a nice 5-bedroom house. I got a heck of a deal on the house. I wired my bank in the Caymans and had them transfer another $200,000. Maria kicked in $200,000 also. The $400,000 covered the agreed-upon price for the house. On night, I got a call from Marty. AJ, Ivy messed up with her new boyfriend and got caught embezzling money from her bank. The kids are staying at her sister's house for the time being. I think it would be a good time for you to try to get custody of your children. Ivy is probably going to jail for 2 to 5 years. Wow, that would be great if you could get my children for me. You know that I am married to a beautiful lady named Maria. She has a daughter from a previous marriage, and we have a little boy together, I said. Marty came through, and my 2 children joined us here in Kamakari. Denise, Ivy's daughter from her marriage with Kevin, decided to live with Ivy's sister in Michigan. Sometimes the good guy wins, and the cheating 304 is in jail. Now for the second story.